result of a wave of snobbery which was sweeping London. There was no point, after all, in belonging to the Tongue if you could not get somewhere that was banned to lesser mortals. These dancers had introduced something new into English life, a rigid, narrow, and inhuman pride, the most vulgar and despotic of the patronesses, and therefore the most snobbish, was that haughty and indefatigable beauty, Lady Jersey. These rooms she reigned over had also become the highest marriage market in Britain, where some of the richest bachelors in the world could be seen executing Scottish reels to the fiddling of Neil Gow's band. Hence Lady Amelia Godolphin's screaming despair, for Lady Amelia not only wished to remarry and marry well, but she had already set her sights as high as Lord Philip Cautry, a handsome and moneyed aristocrat whose line dated back to the mists of antiquity. Lady Amelia was beautiful and very rich. She was the daughter of an impoverished Irish peer who had shocked London by marrying a wealthy and elderly cit, Harold Godolphin, at the end of her first season. That she had married the rich businessman for his money was never in doubt, and he obliged her by dying some 6 months after the wedding and leaving her his immense fortune. Amelia had gladly taken the money and had set out to kick up her heels around the town. At first, her exploits were more hoydenish than scandalous, but she ended up having a much-publicized affair with the middle-aged Duke of Glendarran, despite the noisy objections of the Duchess. Just when it seemed as if the Duke might divorce his wife in order to marry Amelia, he died of a heart attack, brought on, said society maliciously, by his constant and strenuous efforts to behave like a much younger man to charm his fair mistress. Lady Amelia had promptly rusticated in Italy for 2 years, and then, assuming that the polite world would have forgotten her affair, she had returned to London to prepare for a season, and to woo Lord Philip. As she was very rich, titled, young and beautiful, all doors were open to her, but that all-important one, Almack's. Lord Philip Cautry was known to be notoriously high in the instep, and would not take a wife who was not socially acceptable everywhere. At last her screams subsided into noisy sobbing, and her lady's maid knew, from long experience, that it was now safe to start to quietly clean up the damage of shattered china, and to arrange for the looking-glass to be repaired yet again. Lady Amelia dried her blue eyes on a corner of the sheet, and straightened her nightcap with her hands, which still trembled with rage and disappointment. She wrenched herself from the bed and stormed to a small writing desk in the corner and began to scribble busily. Then she held out the finished letter to the lady's maid, Elliot. "Elliot, see that a footman takes this round to Mrs. Beaton immediately," she demanded. And as Elliot scurried from the room, she sat tapping her foot and staring stormily into space. An odd sort of friendship had developed long ago between the young and beautiful Amelia and the middle-aged and waspish Mrs. Mary Besant. Perhaps it was simply because the pair delighted in rending apart the characters of their friends and acquaintances. Mrs. Besant was also a widow, and her sour appearance and sharp tongue ensured that she would always remain so, having nagged her meek husband into an early grave. Lady Amelia, unlike her friend, had the sense to try to curb her tongue in public, and although, all too often, her flashes of malice would dart forth, she was, in the main, readily forgiven because of her beauty. She had pale blue eyes like a spring sky, hair so fair that it was nearly white, and a tall, willowy figure. She hoped Mrs. Besant would reply to her summons and come immediately. She rang the bell for Elliot, and stood like a beautiful statue, while the lady's maid dressed her in a pale blue redingote, the colour of her eyes. Amelia was just descending the stairs when Mrs. Besant was announced, and both women walked together into the Rose Saloon.